Okay, we are doing our book study of the book The Vortex, and we are starting today on page 82. Hi Deborah. Hi Mercedes, good to see you. And Margie and Rochelle, good to see you guys. Awesome. All right, so page 82, we are on the second section of the book, which is called Mating and the Law of Attraction, the perfect mate, getting one, being one, attracting one. Page 82, the heading is, haven't you observed many disharmonious relationships? Now, Jerry's question to Abraham is, as a child, I remember observing many relationships, but I don't remember any that were happy ones. Most of those relationships were enduring relationships. They survived, but not in joy. I used to say that the majority of relationships I observed were experiencing a sort of quiet desperation. I didn't hear a great deal of complaining, but I also didn't see much joy. How many people relate to that? Yeah, I relate to that. I've seen plenty of those types of relationships, right? Where people stay in the marriage because they think that getting out of the marriage is a worse thing to do, but they're not happy. So they just spend their whole life being unhappy. Oh my God, I've seen so many of those. So many. And so that's what Jerry is talking about over here. And Abraham says something really interesting. Hi, Yolanda. So good to see you. Tamika, good to see you. Awesome. So Abraham says, well, that's the problem. The problem is most children do not have the advantage of observing parents who are in chronic states of appreciation and alignment. So then that's how the children behave as well, because it's monkey see, monkey do, as far as kids are concerned. If you don't see your parents doing it, chances are, unless something happens in your life to change the way you process stuff in your head, you're going to behave the same way. And so, most children are developing unhealthy patterns of thoughts or beliefs about their relationships with others based on what they're learning from their observation of how relationships work. So, even though, like you, children rarely see truly happy relationships, most are still hopeful that they will be able to find one. And that's where, the teen years and early 20s, and even later on, people wanting to fall in love and find that one true forever love, that's the dream. Everyone has that dream. But what people don't understand is that it's up to them. It's their responsibility. If they want it, then their behavior determines whether or not they're going to get that. Our behavior determines how that relationship will end up looking. So Abraham says that there's a deep understanding within us that harmonious relationships are possible, even though we observe so many relationships that are not happy relationships, but deep down we understand that a harmonious, happy relationship is absolutely possible. And in fact, every time something unpleasant occurs within a relationship, an equal desire is born out of it. The more unpleasant things you experience within a relationship, the more specific your desire becomes about what you would prefer instead. So, Abraham talks about how when we experience contrast, then that's how we know exactly what we want. And that's what they're talking about over here, is that when you experience unpleasant situations in a relationship, it gives birth to the desire within you of the type of relationship that you do wish to experience. The more you experience what you do not want, the more you ask for what you do want. That's basically contrast. Contrast makes you realize what you think is important. Hi, Elena. Good to see you. So contrast helps us to see what it is that we do not want. And the important thing is in that italicized text at the bottom of the paragraph where Abraham says, to realize that I can be happy regardless of what anyone else does. You know, people make their happiness conditional on the behavior of other people. You're talking too loud, so now I can't be happy. You left your stuff lying there, so now I can't be happy. I told you to do this, you didn't do it, so now I can't be happy. And that's an issue, because you can be happy regardless of what other people are doing or not doing. By using my own personal ability to focus my thoughts, I can achieve vibrational alignment with my source of happiness, and I will feel good regardless of what others are doing. And the interesting thing is that when you do that, when you stay true to your alignment, other people's behavior actually changes. People will start behaving better because you are more aligned. And the more attention you give to things that you don't enjoy, then the harder it becomes. Because now, when you observe something, here's the thing, whether you like it or not, does not matter. If you observe something, you are perpetuating it. When you observe something, you are perpetuating it. That vibration is going to perpetuate itself in a different event, maybe in a different circumstance or situation, but that vibration is going to perpetuate itself, because law of attraction is about attention, not intention. Law of attraction does not give you what you intend to get. Law of attraction gives you whatever you are paying attention to. That's law of attraction, and we forget that. And unless we recognize that one thing, we will never be able to use law of attraction effectively. Because we all intend good things. We all want good things to happen. Law of attraction does not give us what we are intending. Law of attraction brings us the manifested form of the thing we are giving our attention to, or what we are observing. That's the important thing to understand. So if you keep observing behavior that you don't enjoy, you're going to keep getting behavior that you don't enjoy. You got to find a way to distract yourself from it. Okay? All right. So then the next heading is, but what if my relationship doesn't last? And Jerry here is saying, I traveled a great deal in my life, and I was single a great deal of my life. So, as a result, I experienced a multitude of relationships. It seemed easy to begin them, but difficult to bring them to an end. And I noticed that in our general culture as well, the going into a relationship seems to be fairly easy, but coming out of one is much more difficult. In the dissolution of relationships, in the settling of property and so forth, there is often anger, violence, or revenge. It seems like we observe so many relationships not working out and then really getting worse when they try to come to an end. Doesn't that also add to our guardedness or negative expectations regarding relationships? So let's see what Abraham says in response to Jerry. Abraham says, basically, Abraham is saying, based on what Jerry has said, it seems like there is no good reason to enter into a relationship. If people stay together, often they are not happy, and when they attempt to end the relationships, often things get even worse. And the interesting thing is that if you observe what has happened over the years, is that people will much rather live together and be common law than get married because they're trying to avoid the unpleasantness. But you can't avoid unpleasantness that way. You can't, because the unpleasantness that happens is vibration based. It's not dependent on whether or not you signed a piece of paper to say you're married. Hi Navera, good to see you. All right, so Abraham says, most people enter into most relationships with negative beliefs about relationships. And those beliefs or thoughts they continue to think make it unlikely that their relationship will be a happy, successful one. You see, here's the thing. If you enter into a new relationship and you still keep thinking about the old relationship that you couldn't wait to get out of, if you still keep thinking about how bad it was, then you are activating all of that. And that's why your new relationship, after a period of time, after the newness or the appreciation wears off, your new relationship starts looking exactly like the old one, or very much like the old one. Because your thinking is still focused on what went wrong in the previous relationship. When you close the door on a relationship, you have to walk away from all of it. Just walk away from all of it and literally start the new relationship as if you had never experienced anything before. It's almost because my parents used to move around so much. I had the opportunity to live in many different countries for an extended period of time. And the result of that experience was that you had to start from scratch, everything. You had to start school from scratch, you had to make new friends. Everything was brand new and you couldn't look back because you were in a new country and the underlying belief was these people are different. So we did not hold on to the belief in our heads that people in this new country that we were in were going to be anything at all like the other country we had lived in before. Because everything looked different. The streets were different, the houses were different, the rules were different, the language was different, everything was different. So it was easy to shut the door on the past and move on into a reality that looked completely different. At least for me, from a child's point of view, everything seemed like this is brand new. Nothing from before applies. And I can tell you, if we use that philosophy, every time we change a job, every time we enter into a new relationship, if we use that philosophy that says, whatever happened before cannot impact what is happening just now. If we just firmly close the door, then we are giving ourselves a better opportunity of making our new experience, our new relationship a success. Because we are not bringing anything from the past into the present. So think about that. Those of you who are single, and I see a number of people on Facebook that I know are single, then I'm going to say to you, forget everything that you know about a relationship in the past. Just forget, wipe the slate clean. And here's the biggest thing. You have to understand that you're not the same person. You are not the same person. You are a completely different person. I was coaching someone at one point in time, and she had this negative thing happen to her in high school. We had a massive aha moment when we were able to discern that something happened when she was in high school that changed her, the way she looked at relationships. And that one little event then became the story of her life because she never let it go. And it's by thinking about it that you can let it go. Thinking about it in a way that soothes you is how you let it go. And it absolutely involves the process of forgiving yourself and forgiving the other person. The problem a lot of times that happens in relationships and moving on from an older relationship into a new relationship is blame and guilt. You either feel that you did something wrong, and sometimes you feel like, why didn't I know better? And you become angry with yourself for not knowing better. I should have known better. I shouldn't have entered into this relationship in the first place. I should have known better. Why did I get sucked into it? Right? So that's guilt, and it brings anger on your own person. And then there's blame. Blame. That person sucked me in. I was manipulated. I didn't see because that person lied, cheated, whatever. So, and then through the relationship, you collect more evidence for either blame or guilt. And that's why when you're coming out of a relationship, there's a lot of negative baggage that you need to deal with. And there are two ways of dealing with things. There are just two ways of dealing with things. I used to, initially, long time ago, I used to think that there were many ways of dealing with things. But no, ever since I met Abraham, I discovered that there are only really two ways of dealing with things. One, you make a decision to close the door and you never behave the way you behaved in the past. You give up all your thoughts and beliefs and you completely start new. Or you sit down and you work through why there is guilt and why there is blame. And then you work through forgiveness for the blame and the forgiveness for the guilt. And then you move on. So either you shift your negative beliefs or you just start new. Those are the only two things you can do. And from my own experience, I find that there's a mix. I find that you have to mix the two strategies up. I know Abraham doesn't say it that way, or at least I haven't heard them say it that way. And I've listened to a lot of Abraham. But what I've discovered is that it's a mix, because you have to walk away a little bit and then come back and work on it. But you can't work on it forever. And when you work on it, you create a little bit of movement forward, a little bit of improvement, but you can't just immerse yourself in that, because after a while it starts feeling like too much. So you have to do a little bit of vibrational, emotional work, and then you've got to move away from it, distract yourself from it, then come back and do a little bit more work, and then go away, do something else. Don't keep thinking about it all the time, because if you start thinking about it all the time, you'll split your vibration, because some of it will be negative and some of it will be positive. So when you tell yourself, I'm going to take time to think about this, not just keep thinking about it all the time. Don't do that. Schedule an appointment with yourself to think about something that bothers you. And tell yourself only to think about the problem within that period of time that you've designated for it. And in that period of time, do the work to improve your vibration. And yes, you do have to focus on the problem. You do have to focus on the problem. Here's something else I learned from Abraham, is that when the momentum of a problem is very tiny, there's nothing really to work on. So that's why the problem keeps becoming bigger and bigger and bigger until it becomes of the size that has to be looked after. And there's no other way. So that's why Abraham says, if you don't do anything about it, don't worry. It'll become bigger. And if you don't do anything about it, don't worry, because it will become bigger. It will become so big that you will have no choice but to do something about it. So when we sit down to work on a problem, we have to make the problem a little bigger. We have to make the problem a little bigger so that we can work on it. So the strategy that I teach, that people who are gathered here in the Zoom room are familiar with, and a lot of the people who are gathered on Facebook are also familiar with, is the 4-step process. Right? What does the 4-step process do? First, we talk about what is the problem. I ask you to make a statement of the problem, which means focusing on the problem. So we are intentionally focusing on the problem, because you have to activate the problem first if you're going to work on the solution. You activate the problem first. So that's step 1, activate the problem. Then step 2, state what it is that you want. So it's like saying, here I am, this is where I want to go, now let me plot the path, the route. It's like the GPS. What does the GPS do? You say, here I am, take me there. But in emotions, what we are really doing is, here I am means I'm low on the emotional scale. Where do I want to go is high on the emotional scale. How do I get there? Well, I have to soothe myself to reduce negative momentum. Then I need to appreciate to create positive momentum. That's the 4 steps. Here I am, this is where I'm going, soothing, and then creating positive momentum. And when you do that, you find that you're higher on the emotional scale. Now, you can only sit down and do this work for a limited period of time. Sometimes it's 10 minutes, sometimes 15, 20 minutes, maybe an hour. After that, it starts feeling heavy, because it becomes a chore if you force yourself to do it for too long. So the trick is to stop at the right time. Don't overdo it. If you overdo doing the emotional vibrational work that Abraham teaches us, it can have the opposite effect. So you have to leave it at that point when you know you're now feeling better. Oh, I feel better. That was good. Stop. Full stop. Go away from it, and then after a couple of hours if you want to, but better still, next day come back to it. The thing that I understood from Abraham is that we leave our vibration on that subject where it was, because thoughts never go away. So we leave our vibration, and then we go away, we do something else, and we can come back and pick it up where we left it and work on it again. So what happens is, let me grab my emotional scale pen. So, you're feeling terrible about something. You do the 4-step process, which is basically what Abraham teaches. It's the focus wheel that I have structured into 4 steps, so to make it easier to do. So you're over here, you do a 4-step process, you go up the emotional scale a little bit, and then you stop. Because in one sitting, it is not possible in one sitting to go from here all the way up here. Usually. Depends on the extent of the problem. Okay? If it's a big problem, if it's a problem that's been going on for a while, you have to walk away from it and then come back another time. And when you come back, it'll still be here. And then you pick it up from here and move it further up. And then walk away from it and come back and pick it up where you left it and move it up a little bit. And then walk away and come back and then work on it again and move it up a little bit until the problem doesn't matter anymore. You have worked on it to the extent that it is now insignificant. It does not have any significance in your life anymore. And that's how problems go away. The other way to do it is, I have a problem, I'm just going to drop it, I'm done, I'm moving on. And we see people doing both these things. You have friends and I have friends. We all know people, and maybe some of those people are us. You know people who have woken up one day and said, I'm going to run 5K. And then they go and do it. Right? We all know Nancy. And then there are people who can't do it. Just can't do it. Just can't do it. I want to give up alcohol, but I just can't do it. I want to give up smoking, but just can't do it. I want to go on a diet, but I just can't do it. And for those people who just can't do it, that's where the 4-step process comes in. Because a lot of us just cannot make a decision and then follow through. Abraham says, make a decision and line up with it. Make a decision and line up with it. But for a lot of us, making a decision and lining up with it is really hard. It's like I have so much momentum of negativity in my marriage. I can't stand this person anymore that I live with. And I'm going to wake up. I have decided that tomorrow I'm going to wake up and be in love with him again. How many people can do that? Not too many, right? Not too many. I don't know anyone who's been able to do that. They can wake up in the morning and say, that's it, I'm done and I'm leaving. But I haven't yet seen anyone who wakes up in the morning and says, okay, I am in love all over again. Actually, that's not true. I know just one person in my entire life who used to do that, and that was my father. He used to do that. But for those people who can't make a decision like that, then the only other alternative is to work on it slowly. Shift your vibration slowly. Just this morning, I was talking to someone who has just had it with the person that is in their life. So I asked this person a very simple question. I said, which one is more important to you at this point in time? Do you want to fix the relationship, or do you want to find a way to walk away from it? And I know that there are some people on the call just now who will remember that it was the first question I asked them when they started coaching with me. Is this important enough that you want to stay and save it? Or are you totally done? Because you've got to make one decision. Otherwise, you're going to keep pulling yourself apart. Make one decision. Either say, I don't know if I'm done with it just now. I think first I'm going to try and fix it. Or say, I've tried 1,000,000 times to fix it. It's not happening. I want to walk away. Help me walk away. Because walking away is not easy either. There are so many emotions that become part of walking away. There's all sorts of guilt and blame involved. Should have, could have, would have. Right? Or they should have, could have, would have. So, it comes with that first decision. What do I want? And that's where the 4-step process clarifies what you want. Because what you're saying in the 4-step process is, here I am, and this is what I want in the future. And then you chart your course towards the thing that you want. And so, Abraham is saying, coming back to page 84, Abraham is saying, everybody has this deep desire for a harmonious relationship. Everyone desires it. But then Abraham is saying that there's a desire that is bigger than your desire to be with another person, and that is your desire to be free. And at the basis of your desire to be free is your desire to feel good, because when your freedom is taken away, you don't feel good. And feeling good has to do with your relationship with the broader perspective. Feeling good has to do with your alignment. Feeling good has to do with your relationship with your inner being, which means that the most important relationship is our relationship with our inner being. And then Abraham says in the second paragraph there, Abraham says that the only reason you know when you don't feel good that something is wrong. And the only reason something is wrong is because you are not looking at things the way your inner being is looking at them. A lot of times I see people, especially if you've grown up in a religious environment, such as mine, a lot of times one of the biggest issues in walking away from a relationship is that it's wrong. It's wrong, can't walk away, made a commitment, got married, can't walk away. Or even if didn't get married, still made a commitment, can't walk away. And when you do that, basically, it doesn't feel good because you're giving up your freedom to change your mind. Right? You can make a new decision at any point in time. Freedom to change your mind. And when you're in a situation like that, the first decision you have to make is whether or not you want to stay and fix it, or you're done and you need to leave. You have to make a decision. Otherwise, you can't move forward. You will forever stay in that place. But nobody's saying you can't make a different decision. You can always change your mind. You can leave and come back, and you can stay and try to work on it until you can decide whether or not it's worth it to stay. There's no right or wrong answer. Okay. So, Abraham is saying, as you do not feel good and therefore are not in alignment, you believe that the person needs to do something different from what he or she is willing or able to do. And that is completely wrong, because it has nothing to do with the other person. It always has to do with you. And if you think that way, if you think that the other person is not willing or able to change their behavior, then you see yourself as powerless. I have no power. I can't change him, or I can't change her. I have no power. I'm powerless. And then they say, so the most important desire at the very basis of who you are feels challenged, and your relationship breaks down. Why do you feel challenged? Because it takes control away. It takes your freedom away. That's why you feel challenged. And then Abraham goes on from there to say, but what we want you to understand, that it was a relationship that was based on a flawed premise to begin with, because it is never possible for another person to behave sufficiently or consistently enough to keep you in balance. That is your job. If you can accept that when you do not feel good, that it is no one else's responsibility to bring you back to feeling good, you will discover the freedom that is essential to your maintenance of personal joy. And if you do not, you just move from unsatisfying relationship to unsatisfying relationship. We create everything that we experience. That is the bottom line. And sometimes there are things that are happening in our life outside of the relationship that end up having an impact on the relationship. Happens a lot. You bring your bad day at work, you bring it home, and you take it out on your partner or spouse. And so we have to understand our own emotions and what those emotions are trying to tell us. what they mean. And a very, very good rule of thumb is to say, oh, I'm feeling bad, I don't feel good. That means I'm not looking at things the way my inner being is looking at them. Stop, breathe, close your eyes. How does my inner being want me to see this? And the answer will always come. Because whatever the thoughts are that are making you feel bad, your inner being's thoughts are the opposite of it. Right? So am I saying things like, oh, this person can never change? Well, that means that your inner being is saying, that's not true. Maybe you're saying things like, I don't think this person loves me anymore. Your inner being at that time is saying, that's not true. Maybe you're saying, there's nothing I can do about this, I'm powerless, and you feel bad. That's your inner being saying, that's not true. You do have the power to feel good. Right? So when we feel bad, it is because our inner being at that point in time is saying that we are looking at things in a way that is deviated from the way Source is looking at them. So then Abraham says, your happiness depends on the intentions, beliefs, or behaviors of no other but upon your own alignment. And no one else can come and align you. This is not a chiropractor's office where you can go in and they'll do an alignment for you. You've got to do your own alignment, your emotional alignment. And Abraham says, you have complete control over that. Complete control. And then your relationships will not only no longer be uncomfortable, but they will be deeply satisfying. In the absence of a personal connection with Source, there is a feeling of insecurity. And this is very important to understand. In the absence of a personal connection with Source, there is a feeling of insecurity that people often try to fill through their relationships with other people. But no other can sustain the connection you need by giving you their attention. No one else. You can't charge your batteries through any other source. You've got to plug into your source. And then Abraham ends this section by saying there is just not another person who can love you enough to compensate for your lack of alignment with Source. No one can love you so much that your alignment with Source no longer matters. No one can give you that much love. It's just not possible. Only you can. You can. You can because you can align with Source. You can love yourself enough. No one else has to. Okay. So then the next question that Jerry's asking is on page 85. Why does the relationship with Abraham feel so right? Jerry says, I know that there are many forms of and reasons for mating. There are marriages of convenience, arranged marriages, and marriages resulting from physical attraction or sexual lust, with high emotions exploding. And some people find mates because they just don't want to be alone. But Abraham, I've been thinking about the absolutely perfect relationship that I have with you. Is it possible for those of us who are right now focused in our physical bodies to see others who are physical in the way I see you? In other words, can we get past the specific details somehow and get to the essence of a physical being so that we can have the harmonious relationship with one another that I feel with you? Interesting question. Abraham says, you could not have asked a better question at this point in our conversation, because what you are describing in your appreciation for what you are calling Abraham is the alignment between you and you that we have been talking about. Your appreciation for us is not because we are behaving in pleasing ways for you, for there are many people who do not feel appreciation for or alignment with us. Some are not pleased with us when they realize that we will not do for them. Others find us annoying because they are very clear about who we are and about what we want, and we are unyielding. So, what is Abraham saying, in other words? Abraham is saying that Abraham being pure positive energy, but there are still people who are not lining up with that. How many of you have friends and people that you know who can't just listen to Abraham? I said, I do. I know lots of people. I know lots of people who just cannot listen to Abraham. Even though that is the voice of pure positive energy, there are people who cannot stand it. You know why they can't stand it? Because they are so far away in their own alignment. Abraham is easier and easier and easier to hear the closer you are to your own alignment. The further away you are from being aligned, then the voice of Abraham it jars on your ears. Because it's like the vibration is so far away from where you are that your system can't adjust to it. Okay. So, the reason that you feel you have a perfect relationship with us is because you are currently focused upon the aspects of us that resonate with who you really are. But you can do that with anyone, right? It reminds me of that story about, I heard from someone, a friend told me this, they were telling it to me as a joke. But to me it was very meaningful, and that was, if you put your wife in the trunk of your car for a couple of hours and you open the trunk, how is your wife going to react? As opposed to if you put your dog in the trunk of your car and you open the trunk after a couple of hours, how is your dog going to react? And your dog, I have a dog, so I can tell you that the dog is going to jump up and lick your face, and the wife is going to slap your face. Right? And so, what is that? Unconditional love. The dog does not equate love with your behavior. It still loves you. Whereas the spouse equates your behavior with the amount of caring, right? Unconditional love means I don't care what you do, I'm going to stay lined up. And our dogs teach us that, don't they? I remember reading Oliver Twist as a child. Very serious book. I would never give it to a child to read, but my mother did give it to me. And in that book, there was a man, Fagin, maybe? I don't remember exactly what the name was. But this man used to kick his dog. And when I was a child, I used to wonder why the dog didn't leave this man and go away. Because they were squatting in some squalor someplace. So it wasn't like the dog was on a leash. And when I read that book, I was like, why does this dog keep coming back to this man when the man keeps kicking and hurting the dog? And now I realize that the dog never stopped loving the man. Never stopped. Right? So that's the difference, right? That dog stayed lined up. Where was I? Okay, so page 86. We are not willing to set. So Abraham is talking about themselves. Oh, I've already read this, so I will not go there again. The reason that you feel you have a perfect relationship with us is because you are currently focused upon the aspects of us that resonate with who you really are. But you have the ability to hold anyone as your object of attention and do the same thing. It is your focus that is responsible for the way you feel about us, not something we are projecting to you. Right? So it's how we see things. Shakespeare's beautiful line, beauty lies in the eyes of the beholder. It's you, the observer. What are you interpreting when you observe? That is up to you. The conclusion that you arrive at when you see someone or something, that is up to you. So Abraham is saying when you interact with other people, it is to your advantage to look for positive things about them. By activating the vibration of those things, positive aspects, more of those positive aspects will flow into your experience. When you discover the art of looking for and finding positive aspects in others, so much so that you develop an expectation for positive things from others, only positive things can come to you. Right? And that reminds me of Dr. Wayne Dyer once was telling a story. He used to go for a 5K run every morning, every single morning. And he was telling the story one time of running on the beach, and he says he met someone new. And I suppose in those days, because he moved to Maui a very long time ago, before Maui was ever as popular as it is now. And he says that he met a woman and she was new, and so he stopped and he said, "Hello, and how are you, and how do you like it here?" And she said, "It's awesome. People are amazing. I love it here." And, I thought that I was going to miss my neighborhood and the community that I came from. I thought I was going to miss that because it was such a lovely place. But I find that people here are just amazing and I'm loving it. And then he says a few days later he was running and again he came across someone new, and he stopped and he asked this person, "Well, how do you like Maui?" And this person says, "I don't like it at all. I moved here because I thought it would be better than where I was before, because where I was before, that community was so unfriendly. And you know what? It's just the same. It's just the same." And then he said, I guess people are the same everywhere," is what that person said to Dr. Wayne Dyer. "I guess people are the same everywhere." And Dr. Wayne Dyer says, "As I moved away, I thought, yes, they are. For you, they are. For you, they are. They are the same everywhere, because, as Abraham says, we take ourselves wherever we go. Right? Your vibration has an impact on who you will be surrounded with. It's just up to you. When you start becoming someone who is always looking for the positive in other people. And this is something that I teach a lot. Every time someone uses the word safety, my ears kind of perk up. And Abraham has talked about this. You see, if you are asking for safety, that means you're expecting the opposite of it. Right? So, because when you feel safe, you don't talk about safety. And that comes from trust. When you trust that the world is a cooperative place, the world isn't out to get you. It's a friendly place that you will always get what you're looking for. When you feel that way about the world, then those are the kinds of people who come into your life. But if you feel that you're not safe, first of all, that's not a good way to live life. If you're always fearful, for your life, that's not a good way to live life. And so you've got to trust people. You've got to trust that people have the capability to show you their best aspects. It's a good philosophy to have, to say to yourself that everyone has good in them, that there's something nice about everyone. I just have to find it. Everyone has something good in them. No one is completely unpleasant or bad. Everyone has something about them that is worth appreciating. And all I have to do is to find that one little thing. I remember in the 40-day workbook, the unlimited 40-day workbook, there was someone who joined once, and she had asked a question about someone that she did not have a good relationship with. And I asked her, is there anything at all about this person that you like, that you appreciate, that you think is nice? And she said, she thought about it, and she's like, yeah. And, we said, okay, is there anything in her personality? And she said, And then I said, okay, what about how she looks? And she's like, she thought about it, and she thought about it. And then in the end, she said, well, she does wear really nice shoes. And I said, okay. So this was a co-worker. I said, okay, can you just focus on her shoes then? And just every day look at the kind of shoes she's wearing and appreciate the shoes that she's wearing. And she said, okay, yes. Her name's Lucienne. Lucienne said, yes, I'm willing to do that. And she did that. And I forgot about it, because so many people ask me so many questions during a day, I don't remember. And then she came back after a while and she said, guess what? This person's whole attitude towards me has changed. And all I ever did was appreciate her shoes. And I thought, that's wonderful. You know why that's wonderful? Because I asked her to do something, and credit goes to her that she did it. Because there are a lot of people that if I told them just appreciate the shoes that this woman is wearing, they will say like, what? And they will let it fall to the wayside. But she didn't do that. She paid attention. She used the information that she received. Mercedes, you have your hand raised. Go ahead.
I just wanted to make a comment. I want to give a big shout out to you. In reading this article today, I can help to remember one of our first meetings, if not the first one, that you told me about my husband. Do you appreciate? So I started doing this appreciating thing, and not only with him, even with my own son, with people in general. And this changes the whole view of many things and many situations. It is very, very powerful.
It is very, very powerful.
Yes.
Very
powerful.
Yes. So, thank you for sharing. Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes...
Amazing. It's amazing. It's very amazing.
It is. It's so simple, right? Because it's simple, that's why sometimes we ignore it. Because the thing in our head is it can't be that simple. It has to be more complicated.
But also it has to do with being treated, the situation being treated from this point of view.
Yes.
Because you can go to a psychologist, you can talk with people, okay, you negotiate this, and can tell you in a certain situation with someone in a relationship, like I was, well, sit down and negotiate this and talk with him, and he should change this, and you should change that, and all that, and approach it from a different, and it's not as powerful as looking for things to appreciate. focus on those things,
Yeah.
and the other ones will diminish, and they do diminish. It's
They do
all
diminish.
renewable.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
And you
very
just
well.
brought up a really important point. In that negotiation, and often if you go to marriage counseling or you go to a therapist, they will ask you to do this negotiation thing. What are you willing to give and what do you want the other person to give you in return? You see, in that, there's always pushback,
There you go.
right? It's conditional. What it means is, as long as I'm giving you this, then you give me that. The minute you change just a little bit, then that deal is off. Right? But if,
This,
yeah, go ahead.
so this, no, I'm just saying that this appreciation of anybody in any circumstances, yeah, it's like this morning, for instance, there was a lady in the grocery store, and she was putting the flowers that came from a box, like, you know, almost throwing them in there, and you know, my old self would kind of even tell her something. And this morning, I mean, you know, I looked at her and appreciated her, you know. And I said, oh my goodness, poor woman, she must be very tired. So many flowers, Mother's Day stuff, you know, it changes. This knowledge of appreciation and practicing, and the more you practice it, looking and feeling the effects.
That's right.
Magic.
So there you go. See, you just demonstrated how much you've changed, and I think you only joined and started doing the work since September of last year.
Yeah.
So only a couple of months. Awesome.
Thank you.
Tamika, awesome. You're welcome. Yes, Margie.